everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Reagan Craig and I'm here with Mayor Mutz, Mayor of Lakeland, Florida, my home city. I just have a couple of questions and we're going to go ahead and get started.
Wonderful.
I know you've probably been talking about yourself a whole lot during this campaign, but
The thing I like least about it.
yeah. But could you tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're rerunning for mayor, and what inspired you to run for mayor in the first place?
Well, I was really encouraged to run for mayor originally, and I did not have the view of that as something on my trajectory, but other business people did after I had retired and sold my business. And so when I considered it, I felt like it would be something at least I might have some of the skill sets for, and pursued it farther, and my wife was comfortable with it, and so we ran. I probably have never done anything in my 45 years in business that was more gratifying, not necessarily more financially rewarding, but that's not why you do it. You do it because of the public service opportunities, and because you help to shape a city, and because you have life skills that you've learned earlier that you can apply. And so it has been incredibly rewarding, and it's been a privilege to serve with the commission that I serve with.
Next question. Lakeland is a rapidly growing city. If re-elected, what are your plans to accommodate for population growth in our infrastructure?
It's what we're doing now. So, and population growth is hugely important to us because it's almost an inevitability. We'd have to mess up things pretty badly not to have that happen sitting where we are in Central Florida. Beyond that, it's an attractive place to live. And so we can maintain the charm and walkability of a smaller sized city than Tampa and Orlando, and have access to both of them on either side, not only for our own utilization for the many amenities they have, but also for jobs as well as places to eat. But we can do much of that ourselves, and so part of the plans and the vision for the city is to enhance housing throughout the city. That would be because that's our greatest need. So our greatest need right now is housing. Jobs are second, that we keep right behind that, and then we'll need more housing. And so we're probably on target for in the next 6 years to do about 10,000 homes platted, and that would be built within the next 15 years. So in that, probably we get about 5,000 of those built. And when we do that, that has to be market price, that has to be workforce price, that has to be affordable housing, and it has to be apartments and home ownership areas, while you don't disrupt the city's footprint while it's in place. In addition, we want to put about 8,500 people downtown that live downtown in the downtown area. So that means we need to use the air spaces more and higher up in order to accomplish that. But again, protecting walkways and protecting kind of the retail areas and inviting first floor retail space on those things as we go along the way. So that the walkability between Bonnet Springs Park and the Volunteer Statue on the east of Lake Mirror is kind of your downtown. And that becomes the entire extension. It's kind of a half moon. And when you think about that, that means some things we're going to have to move. Some of the things we're going to have to add some additional density. And when we move any of those facilities, we're going to make them better than they are currently wherever they go, and work alongside organizations to accomplish that.
Kind of going along with the last question, Lakeland has many small businesses. What plan do you have to aid current small businesses and encourage the growth of new ones?
So we love small businesses because small businesses facilitate people's ideas, the opportunities that some people might not try that perhaps younger entrepreneurs would, the opportunity to seed additional businesses from businesses that get started because new ideas spawn from other ideas. So that is why we have Catapult and The Well, which will open soon as training centers to help strengthen the ability to survive initially, because typically small businesses have a great idea without as much diligence in the plan making and financially, legally, and certainly on a profitability basis. So one of the things we can bring to bear is minimizing those failure points and maximizing success. Then we want to see existing businesses continue to grow within the city, and that's important, so that mid-sized businesses have the same kind of productive input. If you work in the city, and I was at a place last night that is struggling a little bit, it's important to spend time with those owners and to make sure that they're thinking about all the avenues they have available to them and ideas that are available. a city our size, you can do that. So you can spend enough time in getting to know people to get that done. Our commission does a great job of listening well in that regard. And then you have to work on education and training in the school system. So our schools are working on improving, because that's not one of the areas we score as highly in Central Florida on the public school basis, and we don't want people to feel like they have to go to private schools or charter schools in order to get a good education. Our academy use in the public school system is growing. We want to have better partners with businesses in each academy and help to promote that from the city's standpoint. But those are school board initiatives that have to be desired, but we work closely with them. And then we want to have training capacity so that we can take a Polk State College and a new employer that wants to come to the area, and there's a whole arena of training that needs to be done for their employee base, maybe 150, 300 people that have got to go through this program, and develop that training and have the flexibility to get it in place so that we can make those concurrent events when they open. Those are the kinds of things investors and businesses that are wanting to grow into areas need to see available, and those are all things that we love to do.
You're both personally and politically against abortion. Do you believe there should be any exceptions in the case of rape or incest?
Well, I've had my own daughter who had a baby that had died inside her, who nearly took her life, that had to be aborted. So I've been through the pain of that whole process and struggle. So there are certainly exceptions for the life of the mother, and that would be the only exception we apply at Lakeland Regional Health today. As an elective reason, no, I'm against abortion and think it gets too hard a line for the death of a mother, for the protection of the life of a mother is the place where I can see the only reason. Rape and incest are horrible events, not trying to justify them in any way, shape, or form, but it doesn't mean that the life created doesn't have the capacity to become a Rahab in the life of Jesus, on a long-term basis. And so I think we have to be very careful if we're trying to parse out where life ought to live and where it ought not to live. It's probably out of our pay grade.
The next question is, why do you believe the body cameras will be beneficial to the police force?
Body cameras will be beneficial to the police force because they are beneficial to the police forces that already have them. So the wonderful opportunity we had was to be able to interview other police forces and in the state of Florida as well as in the Southeast, and find a department that would say, would you like to get rid of them? Now that you have one, would you like to get rid of them? And universally, no, we love using them, and they help our policing. They enhance our training. They give us the opportunity to exonerate a policeman where there's been a contention that something happened, and when in fact we watch the films, it may have been a different way. And when it's inappropriate, it's an opportunity to talk about this has to change, and you have to change the way that you're handling these things, and we can't have this anymore, and it's part of what helps make good policemen better. We aren't putting body cameras in because we have a problem. We're putting body cameras in for two reasons. One, they take a year plus to be able to get all of the networking done, computerization linked to have them happen, so it's not something that you can quickly react to while we don't have a problem, because we're in a window of time where we can accommodate that without urgency required. But the other reason, and perhaps the biggest reason, is that for many of our minority citizens, they believe body cameras create the best level playing field of accountability in the way I am interacted with of any single tool. And unless we're walking in their shoes, unless we have seen some of the times where that wasn't handled well, we probably wouldn't have the empathy to realize why that's important. And so if our goal is to honor everyone as a commission, that's hard to do. It's hard to try and take a wide brush and say, well, we're going to honor everyone. Not everybody is going to be kind. Not everybody is going to be interested in being helped. So we have to respect those indifferences. But for people who say, we'd like to be heard, this is a huge, huge area. And so the accountability and the ability to be able to benefit from it on many fronts are the two reasons primarily that we're doing it. It's not the only expense related to body cameras when the dollars are referred to, and in fact, we're negotiating and we're encouraged about what that expense is going to be. It includes in-car cameras and tasers and a computer integration as well. And so it'll be a 10-year fixed contract. We'll know exactly what it is for the next 10 years. There's some allegations that we have these unknown costs in the future. We'll know precisely what we're going to spend. And if we add force or add policemen, it would be the addition of X cameras and X people at X cost, but it doesn't change the overall cost of the system. So it'll be done prudently. We cut taxes and made that a provision in our budget. So to do that at the same time means that we've really worked to watch taxpayer dollars, but we're also working to honor the needs and desires of citizens.
COVID cases and deaths are still largely impacting the community. What further plans do you have to combat COVID-19 in the city?
Well, we are really grateful to see the positivity rate under 5%. And so that's kind of our moniker. So to some degree, the numbers play the music with COVID. In that I mean that if we get above 5% into 10%, our caution flag is going way up, and above 10%, then we need to make certain we're being as drastic as the healthcare community in Lakeland believes we ought to be in order to abate a continuing rising trend. We saw this happen in June when the Delta variant came out. But we also were able to use the petri dish of our own Lakeland Regional Health community because that's here, it doesn't have to compare to anybody else in the world, to watch the numbers as well. And we stayed in the high 90 percentiles for people that were hospitalized that are unvaccinated. And we were 5 to 6% vaccinated people that were in the hospital consistently through the Delta variant. And so when you go, okay, we're 91, 94, 95% unvaccinated, certainly the vaccine has had an impact. And another way to test that is the least amount of patients in the hospital population are the age group of 65 to 85, who are the most heavily vaccinated population that we have in Lakeland, in the 80 percentile. And so when you think about the fact that those numbers tell a story in and of themselves, doesn't tell everything, I'm not weighing in on that people should be mandated to be vaccinated, because I wouldn't. And we have no desire to go back to any kind of a mask mandate. But what it does tell you is that with responsible precautions and masking that we did for a period of time, we brought those numbers down. And if we can keep them under 5% positivity on the tests we're doing daily, we'll kind of ride this out and see what happens. Another variant could occur. This isn't going to be a debate that goes away, but I think we're over the worst. We really do on this particular pandemic. It doesn't mean we don't have another pandemic later. But mandates aren't our thing. Mandates are the last thing we want to do. But until you're in the crisis, until you know what the numbers are like, until you know what the hospital's having to deal with, you would work differently if you realize the urgencies. And our responsibility in honoring everyone is to try and also honor people not to spread an infection. And if they get bad, masking worked. Our numbers showed it when we did the masking. It worked throughout the municipalities around us. So none of us like it. We came off early, earlier than we had to on a state basis. But our numbers are why we came off, not because we were trying to beat a political counter. This isn't a political issue to me, it's a human protection issue, and that's the way we should look at it.
Next question is, homelessness in Lakeland is a growing problem. During the debate, you said that you wanted to work with faith-based organizations to help aid the problem. What organizations do you have in mind, and what plan is already in place to help aid the homeless population?
So we've been working on it for 4 years, and we have reduced our homelessness during that 4-year period of time. And the faith-based communities that works with us the most are Lighthouse Ministries, Talbot House, and Salvation Army. And they are great absorbers, each in their own protocols of homeless personnel. Tri-County Health helps us as well, and they do a good job about particularly people that have more mental health issues that have to be addressed, and that's a whole issue. So when we do homelessness, we have to do 3 levels of homelessness really quickly. Episodic, which is I got kicked out of my house, I'm a mom, I have 3 kids, we had a horrible domestic dispute, I'm not living there, I don't have any place to live or family, I'm on the street. So we're trying to handle that episode and get that person and her children into a home as quickly as possible. Chronic Chronic is, and by the way, episodic is about 25% of the homelessness. Chronic is about 15 to 25%, depends on the time, and that is someone who has an addiction, and they get clean, and they get a job, and they kind of land again, and they get into a place, and they start to pay their bills, and then they go off the wagon again, and back into their addiction, and go homeless again. And they work with this life cycle over and over again because of the perils of addictions that take place, drug and alcohol wise. So they have to be in some kind of a rehabbing program, and so that's more complicated. So Gospel Town, which we're working on the east side of downtown, is a place that's going to grow to help work a lot with those individuals. And then there really are the ones who have mental challenges, and that group, which is almost half of homelessness, have to have some kind of additional care. So those can be drug rehab centers, those can be mental health centers that they go to, and are problems that have to be prescripted each and every time in terms of how you handle that person and what their resolution may be. Maybe a restoration back to a family where they're from, and the time that it takes to find family and to be able to get those people reconnected. We'll always have homelessness because there's always going to be disrupted lives. Our job is to try and take everyone who is homeless, who would like to work or find housing, and be able in the shortest time possible through identification of caseworkers or utilization of our not-for-profits and get them a place to live and get stable in their lives. So housing is super important, but community first is the most important. And that means we understand their lives and we do a relationship and build a relationship with them. We kind of take a picture of downtown Munn Park and say, well, this is homeless population. That homeless population in Munn Park, typically, there's several people in there that have been there for years that don't want to ever work and love the life the way that it is, and that's just what they do. And they are citizens, and they have the ability to be able to sit there. We don't want extensive loitering. We don't want backpacks, of clothing and stuff to have to be there. We work with them on that basis, and we have a LPD policeman assigned just for that responsibility, who knows each of them by name personally and works with them. Aggressive homeless people on the street trying to get money from people and who are doing, kind of threatening, hey, can you help me, and walk up to you from behind. That we want to be intolerant of, because that is threatening to our citizens, and those people all know it. We'll typically have in our city 4 to 8 of those people. And we know all 4 to 8 of them, and we know kind of when they've left and when they come back again. We don't want it to be comfortable for them to be here, frankly. They're not honoring other people. We don't want them dishonoring them, and we don't want to make it hospitable. So we're more aggressive with those individuals.
Do you believe that moving the statue was the right decision, and do you think that deciding to move it has hurt your campaign for re-election?
Certainly, I'll take the latter first. Certainly, if someone parks on the lightning rod of moving the statue as being my decision instead of the commission's decision, it can be something that people react emotionally to. Was it the right decision to move that statue that the commission as a whole made? Absolutely. And it is the result of enhancing and expanding history, not removing or erasing it. We made the by far most courageous and difficult decision as a commission. The easy thing to do would have been to have left it there. So why would it be more considerate to move it? You have to know that in 1910, over 152 of those statues were put up, just like ours, those sent to towns across the southeast states that had the most lynching history. And the reason they were put there was, one, outwardly, to honor the Confederate soldiers who fought for and defended Florida as a veterans statue. So if you're Daughters of the Confederacy, they recognized that's what the statue was for. But at the same time those statues were put up, the blacks in the communities in which they were raised were told, this statue exists in downtown to tell you this is not your downtown, this is our downtown. And even though we're at rest with our soldier on top of the monument, don't ever think you can be at rest down here. So don't buy a business down here, don't have a business down here, you stay north of North Street in our case, which is Memorial Avenue, was called North Street at that time. And so if you go to the patriarchs and the black community in the city who are wonderful, reasonable, non-emotional, grandfatherly men, and you ask them about that, they'll say, there's no question, that was always the story. So it was never to be our downtown. So anytime you went downtown, you looked at that statue, you see that statue. Our kids and our grandkids all know that that's the message. Well, once I understand that story, and I understand that intent, which is very clearly communicated, and decide not to do something with it, we're out of the honoring everyone business. And so if that's a first mandate, which by the way I think is a mandate for us as a culture, the cultures that survive in this nation are the cultures that love unconditionally and work intentionally to be able to honor the rights of other people. And so if we do that intentionally, then we're gonna say, well, perfect. Then if we wanna look at it as a veteran statue, we'll move it to Veterans Park, where it can be with all our other celebration of soldiers who fought to defend us with in the other wars. At the same time we move it and make that money and expend it, we take it away as the onus to a group of people who are a minority that it was intended to offend. And so if someone then raises the issue, well then why not do a referendum? Well, that's very simple. Two reasons. One, you're elected in a republic to represent all people. And so if our goal is to represent everyone, then a republic will honor what's known for a minority, where a majority may not ever vote to be able to do that. If we're doing a referendum, the statute would have stayed where it was. We didn't do a referendum because we knew both stories, could accomplish both purposes, not erase history, and be able to protect and defend the citizens that could enjoy their downtown at last without the onus of the monument in place. The last piece that is brought up sometimes by my opponent on this is that I originally said I'd love for us to raise the money to move the statue so that it comes from individuals in the community who care and who want to who represent the fact that this would be a good thing to do. We only raised $20,000 that way. The move cost $220,000 roughly. We then knew, therefore, that if we were, the goal was not to use tax dollars. If we were going to move it with non-tax dollars, we had $1.5 million in our red light camera fund that we were working on the time at dispersing uses of. And we said, well, let's take $200,000 out of that. And actually, it came out, I think, to be about $190,000 out of the red light fund for the purpose of the statue move. $480,000, just coincidentally, of the $1.5 million in the red light camera fund was from people that ran red lights that didn't live in Lakeland at all. So if you know that $480,000 mentally, you just apply this, we're going to use 190 and 480 is what is in there for non-Lakeland residents. Every dollar that moved the statue was for somebody, generated by someone that was out of town. So that we could really try and accomplish, our goal was to try to raise the money, certainly not to use taxpayer money, and that way we could use red light camera money. We accomplished all three of those things at the same time. Honoring soldiers, taking the onus away, and not using taxpayers' money. And I actually think the commission worked wonderfully well in accomplishing that. Didn't erase history, and gives every parent the opportunity to celebrate why it's where it is in light of what they now know.
America in recent years has felt more divided in both political and social spheres. On a local level, we can see and feel this division. As mayor, how do you plan on unifying the citizens of Lakeland, and what does unification look like?
Yeah, so I think we've actually done this. So we have unified the city, and we weren't vulnerable in last summer's riots here to violence because of the fact that people feel heard. And it's the combination, by the way, that occurred with a monument gone in one part that may have even helped to have saved that and saved other incidences that could have occurred. So forward thinking, I think we had already prepared our way well. This happens because people cease caring about others. I'm talking about polarization, and only care about their opinion. So if I start to live in my silo, I believe it's my responsibility to make sure everybody believes like me, then we polarize. That is not where this nation was formed constitutionally. It's not where this nation was formed when we wrote the Declaration of Independence. This nation was formed by starting with honoring people. And if if you take away the Judeo-Christian ethic of love out of a culture, and you cease to honor people categorically across the board, you will have division, you will see a nation fall. The only thing that keeps us in place is the fact that we have a true north, a Judeo-Christian ethic, that in that is that we learn to love unconditionally, and then we start to listen well. And the collegialness that comes from that intentionality is what makes it possible to be bipartisan and to do things in the middle. We are in a nonpartisan role. That means we are to represent every citizen in this community that is protected by any law of the community, and to do it equally. And so our commission works very, very hard to do that. That is what we're going to continue to do. That is how we're going to mentor, which is why mentoring programs are important to us going forward, because I think one of the things that can become a distinctive of Lakeland on a long-term basis is that it's going to be truly a city of brotherly love. We think about Philadelphia like that, and it was established that way. We can be a city that is known for its ability to have had its citizenry at large feel extremely well heard, well listened to, and love where they live. And we're on that road, and we'll continue down that road. That's what motivates us.
What makes you a better candidate for the job, and what message do you have for other voters out there?
What makes me an extremely differentiated candidate for this position for re-election is life experience and trust and lots of community relationships. So I have only lived here for I'll be 26 years in November. But in that period of time, I've served on over 21 boards in this city. I've been chairman of our hospital for 2 years, as well as on that board for 12 years, chairman of LEDC, as well as on that board for 10 years, and 2 years as high-skill highway director. On the board of trustees at Southeastern University, board of trustees at Florida Southern College, VISTI, and business boards as well. And in almost half the cases, chairman of those boards. The reason that those boards involved me, and most of those boards sought me, I did not necessarily try, say I want to be on, well, almost in every case, I didn't work to be on a board, is because I'm a collaborator. And collaborators know how to bring disparate voices together and to create mission that might have some fragmentations in it and make them work so that we can continue to move forward and to bring the rest of the room with them. And that's what I do well. And so I can meet with business CEOs. I can sit down with Amazon. I can sit down with a new entrepreneurial startup business. I can work out of the experiences of my life as a businessman. I can understand cash flow and the needs. I understand hearts because my wife and I have spoken for 25 years for the Family Life conferences, which have a weekend to remember Marriage Weekend. And I've raised 12 kids, and I have 27 grandkids, and there's dynamics just in that load alone. I've owned my own $100 million sales a year business and for 18 years, and worked with 180 employees and know the dynamics of that business. So all of those arenas give you an opportunity to be able to utilize your skills here. And the trust and the cooperation and the depth of understanding that our finance director and our city manager know that I help to lead with our commission is like this. And so continuity and experience are the reasons that I'm far differentiated from my opponent and are the important thing to consider at a time we are in a cusp level of growth as a community.
That was my final question. Thank you.
Thank you.